This is a video addressed to the British people in relation to the Gulf oil leak that's happened now around 8 weeks ago. Now, for a long time now, for many years, we've been told about the special relationship between Britain and America, and recently we can see how this relationship really spans out. Now, speaking of this special relationship, it was exposed long time ago, and the media and much of the British public saw the fallacies of this special relationship, where in actual fact this so-called love affair was between Bush and Blair, and ultimately Bush was being the puppet master and Blair was being the loyal poodle. Now, like true partners, UK, like loyal servants, followed America into war, into illegal war, committing its troops, its time, its resources. It was the recession that it followed itself into as well. We hear a lot of news about how we're in recession and how we need to make a lot of cutbacks for a lot of things and a lot of people will suffer. But ultimately it was America that you followed and fell into recession in the first place, thus leading you into economical disaster. Now, as for the wars, that they've committed themselves to 2 illegal wars, committing war crimes against the civilians there, and furthermore you've committed troops only for hundreds of these troops to actually end up dying, and many more to have lifelong injuries. Now, you were obviously lied to that you've committed your troops to because of WMDs, and this was obviously later exposed, but it was to that extent that they followed the lies that America fed them. Whether they believed them or not, that's a different story altogether. And obviously they were lied to currently, being told that they need to be in Afghanistan for their own security and for their own safety as well.
The death toll in Afghanistan has long since surpassed that of Iraq. Some ask if this campaign truly is in Britain's national interest.
When Liam Fox said that we weren't dying and being wounded and maimed in Helmand province so that Afghan girls could go to school, it was pretty brutally expressed. But he had the heart of the matter there. Afghanistan has got to sort out its own society in its own time. We, in the meantime, must have a very clearly defined sense of the British national interest.
So what are Britain and other nations' troops fighting and dying for? The campaign itself was launched after 9/11 to ensure Afghanistan could never again be used as a base from which to launch such attacks. But critics say the war itself may be radicalising some young Muslims in the West. And with another tough summer of fighting underway in Afghanistan, military commanders there are under increasing pressure to produce faster results.
Now, and the ultimate lie, which has been exposed many times over, but more recently in relation to the oil that was spilled in the Gulf, in regards to BP, that America will always be there for you, and no matter through thick and thin, that they will always be there. And this was shown to you by what Barack Obama was doing, whereas he was called by his own people as completely useless and irrelevant, and the fact that it was likened to his Katrina. He made numerous trips and to show that he was actually trying to do something regarding the oil spill. However, the best thing that he could possibly do, and the only thing that he could possibly do, was come out and criticize BP and Britain, thus wiping out $54 billion of the value of his shares. Now, and then coming out with very stupid statements such as he's looking for someone's ass to kick. He called it a foreign oil company that had nothing to do with America, when in the truth of the matter, BP and its relationships with America go back many centuries. BP was more than welcomed in America to help it profit from the oil. America has more profited from BP than Britain itself. It's not like BP invaded America to extract its oil, whereas we see internationally that America would be more than happy to invade countries as is done, such as Iraq, to extract the oil by force. And recently in Afghanistan, it was Americans that discovered that Afghanistan had over $1 trillion of minerals. This obviously will only benefit America. It won't benefit Britain in the slightest, regardless of how many troops it's committed there, regardless of how many people, how much money it has spent there, regardless of how many lives have been lost there at the hands of Britain. This is completely irrelevant. It is America that calls the shots, and we see this time and time again. Many European countries refuse to commit any troops to the front line because none of them are stupid enough to actually commit their troops, knowing that this is a completely endless war that can only finish in maybe 30 to 40 years. There is no way out. And this is what the British generals themselves are saying. What clear indication do the British public need that this is a completely futile war and this will never be won? But coming back to Barack Obama, he was doing his very best to blame BP, the British company that it is, for all of its mistakes. The fact that they would be the ones who have to fund any sort of clean-up cost. Surely America has benefited from this, and it was looking to benefit from this. So why is it BP has to pay for this? At the drop of a hat, it has agreed to not pay any dividends to its shareholders this year. Well, £1 in every 7 that was paid was contributed towards the pension funds here in the UK. Once again, we see that the British government will do absolutely nothing for its own people. The fact that it has got such a close ally with America, following it into destruction, following it into recession. Speaking of recession, at a time where we are at such economical disaster in the UK, we hear the Prime Minister continuously talking about all the cuts that are having to be made, whereas he's overlooked the wars. This would be a huge saving if he was to simply withdraw his troops from the war that does not even concern him, as has nothing to do with his country whatsoever. The cost of fighting, reported by the BBC, has passed £20 billion. This is not including the salary, the troops' salaries. Recently we saw David Cameron going to Afghanistan and proudly saying that he's going to increase the troop salaries.
Now, I know that you were told that if you came out here this morning, you'd get a message from the most important person in England. And I don't want to let you down, so I've got a message from the most important person in England, and that is, of course, Fabio Capello, the England manager. And this was his message.
But the biggest cheer came when he promised them more money, an extra £15 a day.
And I can tell you today, it is going to be doubled. You're going to get it next month, and it's going to be backdated to the date of the general election. And I'm proud to be able to stand here and say that.
The public's finance, when it's in an extremely dire state, its relationship with America only makes it far worse. They followed them blindly into these wars and also into recession. Now, America found every silly excuse to blame BP, picking on everything that Tony Hayward would say, such as that he would want his life back. The immense pressure that was put on him, obviously he would like to return to as things were, but the White House ensured that this was completely blown out of proportion, thus taking the limelight off of Barack Obama, who is obviously responsible, ultimately responsible for what goes on in his country. And coming back to my earlier point, it's not like BP invaded America. They were welcomed there. They were given the blessings of America, regardless of its previous health and safety record, which is obviously what they're emphasizing on now. America is to blame even more than BP themselves. It's time that the British people actually ask themselves, looking at these recent events, that when will they stop being a stooge of the West? And when will they stop meddling in things that do not concern it or even serve its own interest? For when America only serves its own people and its own interests, when will Britain learn that the special relationship is nothing more than a special relationship of convenience towards America. You can see many other European countries do not get involved as much as with America as Britain does. Britain feels it's backing the winner, but as you can see, America is on the brink of disaster, economically, financially. They will even not think twice. America will not think twice at deserting Britain, just like Britain was led into the endless wars of Iraq and Afghanistan. The British publics and the troops even are being fooled into thinking that they need to be there in Afghanistan, when this itself makes Britain a greater threat to terrorism unless it changes course, stands up for itself, and does not follow America into the pit of destruction.